after transmigrating into a redemption novel. In order to save the devoted female supporting role, I tried to conquer her 4 times, but every single attempt ended in failure. I could never change her tragic ending, the ending where she gave up her life for the male lead, after forcing a smile and attending the male and female lead's wedding. She took a knife and lay down in the bathtub. By the time I rushed home, blood covered the floor. In that pool of blood, Willow lifted her head, tears streaming down her face as she said, "Makoto, he got married. This time. I really can't hold on anymore." Watching her face rapidly draining of color, I clenched my teeth and asked slowly, word by word, "Then what about me?" But she only pressed her lips together and left me with one sentence, "I'm sorry." What she didn't know was that I had already heard this sentence 4 times, but this time was different. This time, she was pregnant. Just last night, she was still nestled in my arms, softly asking, "Hubby, do you think our baby will be a boy or a girl?" Sadly, that question would never receive an answer again. Amid the system's alarms, my world was reset once more. When I opened my eyes again, the 18-year-old Willow was being cornered at the entrance of a familiar alley. Blood stained the corner of her mouth, and her gaze cut through the crowd, meeting mine directly. Chapter 1. The girl leaned quietly against the wall. Her school uniform was washed so many times it had turned pale, and there were injuries on her face. A few thugs with hair dyed in gaudy colors surrounded her, shoving her while spitting out filthy insults. She didn't struggle, nor did she try to shield herself. Her gaze stayed fixed in the direction where I stood. I had experienced this scene many times already. In every past attempt, I would charge forward without hesitation, standing between her and them, beating those punks to a pulp, protecting Willow. But this time, my feet felt nailed to the ground, because in the previous life, I accidentally saw her diary. Turns out, during all of this bullying, the person she had always been waiting for was the male lead who would pull her out of the mud, not me, the outsider cutting in halfway. No wonder she's the devoted female supporting character in the novel. She was born to wait for the male lead. Even her youthful affection was hidden so carefully, leaving no trace on the surface. The system kept blaring alarms in my mind, urging me to take action. I took a deep breath, and finally took a step forward. The thugs noticed me and sneered. A blonde one tilted his mouth and said, well, the simp is here again." Another chimed in, "Seriously thinks he's some kind of hero, huh?" I ignored them, and simply walked over to Willow. Crouching down in front of her, she lifted her eyes to look at me. There was no surprise in them, only understanding and helplessness, as if she had known all along that I would come. I reached my hand toward her, then picked up the pancake that had fallen in front of her, and brushed off the dirt. I said, "Good thing it didn't get dirty." I muttered quietly and took a bite. The pancake was still warm. Inside, the fried egg and lettuce were things I added for her that very morning, because she often didn't have money for breakfast. I brought her something to eat every day, switching things up, chewing the pancake. I looked up at the thugs and said with a muffled voice, "Sorry, wrong person. You guys go on." For an instant, the entire alley went silent, except for the sound of me chewing. Willow froze. Her always gentle eyes showed shock for the first time. Her face paled. She pressed her lips tightly together and turned her head away. I didn't pay attention to her, still eating my pancake. I lifted my foot and walked past her. Chapter 2. When Willow stepped into the classroom right as the bell rang, a large patch of her clothes was already soaked through. She glanced at me, her lips moving as if she wanted to say something. I avoided her gaze, raised my book to block the space between us, and let my thoughts drift far away. Back when I first accepted the system's task, I chose, without hesitation, what seemed like the easiest mission, redeeming the gentle female supporting role. Naively, I thought saving a girl who looked gentle and kind wouldn't be difficult at all. The first time, I approached her as a friend. I shielded her from her father's drunken violence, paid her mother's medical bills, taught her how to grow independently, until she slowly carved out a sky of her own, and became a scientist capable of standing strong on her own. On the night before her award ceremony, while I was excitedly booking flowers and a restaurant, I received an invitation to her funeral. The last thing she left me was a single sentence, "I'm sorry," but what she left for the male lead, Makoto, was a full 3-page letter. In it, she not only offered blessings for his new marriage, but also poured out all the feelings she had buried for years. The second time, under the system's suggestion, I chose a deeper relationship. Willow was a wonderful girlfriend, gentle and considerate, keenly sensitive to others' needs. She would bring me dinner when I worked late, afraid I would forget to eat, caring for my health more than I did myself. She would rush to the hospital the moment she heard I was sick, staying by my bedside without sleep, and in the early mornings, freshly awake, she would cling to me and act coquettishly, asking me to kiss her. I sank into it all, fell hopelessly in love with her, and proposed on the day of our wedding. I was full of joy for the future, but when I woke up, the person lying in my arms had already turned into a cold corpse. Her hand was wrapped around an empty pill bottle. Tablets scattered all over the floor. Her phone screen was still lit, showing that she had recently liked a post about Makoto's wedding. I unlocked her phone and found dozens of unsent draft messages, all wishing Makoto happiness. The third time, the fourth time, every time was the same. One moment, she would be messaging me, "Hubby, what do you want for dinner tonight?" The next, by the time I rushed home, she had already jumped off the rooftop. Until this time, just the night before, the woman who told me I was going to be a father was still planning our future with me. I had even begun drafting a request to remain in this world until the end of my natural life, but after watching the male and female leads walk toward their happy future, she once again ended her own life, as if completing a mission she had long carried. When I saw the bathroom drenched in red, the world I had held together for so long finally collapsed. I had painstakingly guarded every possible point where the male lead might trigger her despair. I had stayed by her side through everything, yet it was never enough. I finally understood the devoted female supporting role, who forever waits for the male lead, is not someone others can save. This time, I was truly exhausted. I couldn't save her, and I no longer wanted to try. That very night, I submitted the application to abandon the mission. The system sighed heavily and went to the higher-ups to begin the approval process. Chapter 3. The dismissal bell rang, and the homeroom teacher stood on the podium announcing that seats would be rearranged, letting everyone choose in order. When it was Makoto's turn, his gaze shifted back and forth between Willow and Sophia. Willow kept staring at him, her fingers unconsciously clutching the hem of her shirt. Yet the next second, Makoto said, "I choose Sophia." Willow, who had leaned slightly to one side, froze for a moment. She lowered her eyes, her shoulders sinking a little, unable to hide her disappointment. This scene was all too familiar to me. In the past, I would immediately walk over and deliberately say loudly, "I choose Willow," trying to preserve her dignity in that clumsy way. But this time, I glanced at the empty seat next to the little delinquent Sophia and walked straight over to sit down. Sophia was sprawled on her desk taking a nap. My chair scraping against the floor woke her up, and she glared at me unhappily. She said, "What's the noise for?" I ignored her and quietly arranged my books. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Willow sitting alone by the window, the seat beside her still empty. She looked lonely and desolate. After class ended, Willow walked to my desk. She said, "George, why did you?" She had just started speaking when Sophia came rushing over like a whirlwind. Sophia let out a cold snort. "George, let me copy your math homework. Hurry up." She reached straight for my notebook as if it already belonged to her. A faint displeasure flashed across Willow's gentle, reserved face. She looked at Sophia and shoved her own homework into Sophia's hands. "Use mine." Sophia paused for a moment, then muttered, "Fine," before flopping back onto her desk to copy. When the lunch bell rang at noon, the students all flooded toward the cafeteria. Willow stayed where she was, her gaze following me the entire time. I knew what she was waiting for. Every lunchtime, I would take out 2 lunch boxes and hand one to her. Her mother was gravely ill in bed, and the family had no money. Getting 3 meals a day was already a struggle. In the past, I was always moved by how pitiful she looked and softened again and again. But this time, I walked straight to Sophia and said, "Let's go. Didn't I say I'd treat you to lunch today?" Sophia's eyes lit up. "Oh right, I almost forgot. Then I want to try that new cafeteria window." As I walked out of the classroom with Sophia, I caught in my peripheral vision Willow standing there with reddening eyes, completely at a loss. The next day at noon, she was still waiting for me. When I ignored her again and walked straight out of the classroom, she called my name softly. "George." I didn't respond, dragging my buddy from the next class toward the cafeteria in a hurry. On the third day, she finally walked over herself. She said, "Let's go eat together." Her voice was soft, carrying a tentative hope. I raised an eyebrow, about to speak, when Makoto suddenly pushed the door open. His expression was ugly, as if he had just suffered a blow. Willow immediately went to him and asked, "What's wrong, Makoto?" Makoto closed his eyes for a moment, brows furrowed, and complained angrily, "Sophia is unbelievable. Just because I forgot to buy her milk tea, she threw a tantrum in front of everyone and even refused to eat." Willow tucked her hair behind her ear, her tone so gentle it was almost dripping honey. She said, "Girls get emotional. She might calm down after a while." Makoto sighed helplessly. "This is the 3rd time today. Nothing I do can coax her." Willow chuckled softly. "Maybe you're just using the wrong method to coax her." The two of them went back and forth, completely treating me as if I didn't exist. Seeing the situation, I quietly slipped out and thoughtfully closed the door behind me. Chapter 4. The last class activity before the college entrance exam was an outdoor cookout. I originally had no intention of joining, but from morning reading to every break, Sophia nagged in my ear like a broken recorder. "It's our last group activity, please, I'm begging you. Can't you just come?" In the end, I couldn't stand her pestering anymore and got on the bus. The bus was loud and chaotic. At some point, Willow had slipped into the empty seat beside me. Her face was tinged with an abnormal flush, and the strands of hair near her ears were damp with sweat. After the bus started moving, she gently tugged my sleeve. "George, I feel a little dizzy." I gave her a glance and said expressionlessly, "Obviously." She seemed unprepared for my cold attitude. She froze, a bit of grievance flickering in her eyes as she whispered, "You used to always prepare motion sickness medicine for me beforehand." She sounded like her fever had muddled her mind. Her voice grew softer and softer. "Last time I had a fever, you went out in the pouring rain to get medicine for me. When I had stomach pains, you stayed by my side rubbing my stomach until it got better." With every word she spoke, my heart sank lower. Those were clearly memories from previous lifetimes. I hurriedly tried calling the system in my mind, but all I heard was a harsh, busy tone. Before I could make sense of anything, the bus suddenly jolted violently. From the front came a scream, a landslide. The bus tilted uncontrollably to the right, and the cabin erupted into chaos. Rocks flew everywhere. In the front row, Makoto grabbed Sophia and shielded her tightly with his back. But in the next second, a rock hurtled straight toward him. Seeing this, the groggy Willow snapped awake and instinctively lunged forward. While I was still stunned, Sophia, screaming, threw her arm in front of me to block a flying rock. She yelled, "Deskmate, after this you're letting me copy your homework until the college exam is over." When the bus finally stopped, everyone supported each other as they climbed out. Makoto was holding onto Sophia. The two of them only had minor injuries, but Willow, who had thrown herself over them to protect them, had a long gash on her arm. Blood soaked through her sleeve. She sat alone by the roadside, head lowered as she treated her wound. She lifted her eyes toward Makoto, her gaze dim. Sophia nudged my arm. "George, aren't you going to check on her?" I was bandaging her at the moment. Hearing that, I clicked my tongue impatiently. "Quit talking. Worry about yourself first." The cotton swab dipped in disinfectant pressed onto her wound, and Sophia yelped and jumped in pain. Her screams made my ears ring. I rubbed my ear, then suddenly felt someone staring at me. I turned my head. Willow was looking at me in a daze. She bit her lip, her eyes slightly red. I withdrew my gaze and was about to turn away when she called out to me, "George." Her voice was choked. "I can't bandage it with one hand. Can you help me?" I actually laughed out of anger. "What does that have to do with me? You got hurt because of someone, so go ask them to bandage you." The grievance in her eyes vanished, unexpectedly replaced by a spark of hope. She said, "Are you mad because Makoto and I are close? I actually only see him as..." I cut her off. "You can see him as your dad for all I care. Move. You're blocking the way." She froze, staring in the direction I walked away, her wrist falling limp. She gave up on bandaging altogether, letting the wound continue to bleed. Chapter 5. On the bus ride back, the atmosphere was much heavier than before. Clusters of students leaned against each other to rest. No one spoke. Suddenly, Sophia stood up and announced that 500 yuan of the class funds were missing. It was still in the outer pocket of my backpack before we got on, she said, frowning as she checked her bag. The bus instantly erupted. Someone shouted, "Search the bags. The money definitely hasn't been transferred yet." Amid the chaotic voices agreeing, Willow silently hugged her worn-out backpack tighter. That tiny movement drew attention. A girl asked, "Willow, what's in your bag?" Willow's face turned pale in an instant. She whispered, Just some books. Let us see." A few classmates grabbed her bag without waiting for permission. The zipper was yanked open, and everything spilled onto the floor. A few old books, a torn wallet, and a stack of loose bills. Sophia picked up the stack, counted it, and said, "It's exactly 500. Willow shook her head in panic. "That isn't the class money. That's my mom's medicine money for this month." "Stop pretending," a girl said sharply. "Everyone knows how dirt poor your family is. Where would you get 500 yuan? All the students looked at her with open disdain. Finally, Willow looked toward Makoto, her voice trembling. "Makoto, you know, I just borrowed that money yesterday." But Makoto looked at her with disappointment. "Willow, I really didn't expect you to do something like this. If you needed money, you could have told me. How could you steal the class funds?" Willow's expression shattered instantly. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Seeing her so lost, I suddenly remembered how, in each of my previous lifetimes, I had always been the first to defend her whenever she was misunderstood. But this time, I didn't want to stay entangled with her anymore. but neither could I pretend I hadn't seen the truth. In the end, I raised a hand and pointed toward the luggage rack, speaking helplessly. Isn't that what you guys are looking for? Everyone's eyes turned to the rack. There, wedged in the gap, was a stack of bills. Silence fell over the bus. The students stared at one another, too embarrassed to speak. Makoto was the first to react, apologizing softly. Sophia's face reddened as she muttered, "Sorry," but Willow just stared straight at me, her eyes shockingly bright. When we got off the bus, she hurried to catch up to me, breathless. "George, wait." I stopped, looking at her flustered state. The wound on her arm had begun bleeding again, staining the makeshift bandage red. She said, "About just now, thank you." She bit her lip, speaking awkwardly. I nodded and took a step back. "It's nothing. It just happened to be you. If it were someone else, I'd have reminded them too, since I just happened to notice where the class funds were." "George, I've figured it out." Just as I was about to leave, she grabbed my sleeve again. She spoke in a rush, her eyes flickering with uneasiness. "It was my fault before. I shouldn't have stayed so close to Makoto. I'll keep my distance from him from now on." "George, please don't ignore me." "Okay, this time let's get along properly." "All right." Listening to her strange and sudden confession only confirmed what I had already suspected. She really had regained all her memories. Since that was the case, I had no intention of continuing this pointless guessing game with her. I said, "Willow." I cut her off directly, my voice so calm it even surprised me. "I remember everything. Just like you. Every lifetime. Every memory. I remember it all." All the color drained from her face. Her lips trembled slightly. You remember everything." I couldn't be bothered to waste more words. I turned to leave, but she blocked my way again. "George." But the next second, "What are you two doing?" Sophia suddenly popped out of nowhere, barging right between us. She looked at Willow, then tilted her head at me, asking, "What secret are you whispering about? Take me with you." Seizing the opportunity, I stepped away and said, "It's nothing. We're heading the same way, let's go." Sophia beamed and quickly followed me. Of course, I had no idea that after I left, Willow remained standing exactly where she was, staring at the direction I had walked away, lost and desolate. Her injured arm hung weakly at her side, and with her other hand, she slowly dug at the wound that had only just stopped bleeding, until fresh blood once again soaked her entire forearm. Chapter 6. Ever since that day, Willow had become like a silent shadow, appearing in every corner of my life. When I arrived at school in the morning, there was always a bottle of warm milk on my desk. After finishing basketball practice, she would follow behind me quietly with a bottle of water in her hand. When it rained, an umbrella would be placed at the classroom door ahead of time. All the careful, cautious kindness she once gave Makoto was now transferred entirely onto me. I tried returning the milk to her in person, but she simply lowered her head and said pitifully, "If you don't want it, just throw it away." And then the next day, she did the same thing again. This situation continued all the way until the day of the college entrance exam. When I walked out of the exam room after finishing the Chinese exam, I heard a few classmates talking. Willow didn't show up today. She missed the very first session. I heard her dad beat her so badly this morning that she ended up in the hospital, lost a ton of blood. My footsteps paused. In previous lifetimes, at this moment, I would go to her house early and wait at the door, stopping her drunken father. But this time, I didn't. Later, I heard that while she was covered in bruises, she kept murmuring, "George will come save me." But this time, there was no George. I completed all the subjects with ease. When I walked out of the final exam room, the long-absent system notification sound finally rang. It said, "Host, your request has been approved. It will take a bit more time before you can leave this world. I've prepared a plane ticket and some money for you. You can take a vacation abroad." I looked up at the bustling crowd outside the exam center, with parents holding flowers and welcoming their children. Among the crowd, I saw Willow. She stood on the very outer edge, staring blankly at me. When our eyes met, her gaze brightened slightly, as if she wanted to walk toward me, but I turned away quickly, melting into the flow of people without looking back. I didn't expect that a bit more time from the system would turn out to be 7 years. I finished college abroad, found a good job, and lived a smooth, easy life. Occasionally, Sophia and I would mail each other local specialties, but beyond that, I had no contact with any former classmates. I never expected to run into Willow again. She had shed the innocence of her teenage years and looked exactly like she did after our marriage in my memories, except now, the once gentle look in her eyes carried a hint of gloom and obsession. I was knocked unconscious from behind by a group of people. When I woke up, I found myself imprisoned in a basement. Heavy iron chains were fastened to my wrists, just long enough for me to move around the room. The system's shrill scream exploded in my mind. "Host, how did she turn dark?" The higher-ups checked several times. "Her attribute is definitely devoted female supporting role." There was no sign of Yandere-like obsessive tendencies. I rubbed the aching back of my neck, Yandere or not, but killing herself 4 times just because the male and female leads got married. Is that not obsessive enough? The higher-ups' assessments were clearly unreliable. Willow pushed the door open and came in, carrying a tray. She carefully set the food on the bedside table, her voice soft and lingering. "You're awake." She sat by the bed, pulled my hand over, and rubbed it gently against her cheek. Then she gave a faint smile and said, "I searched for you for 7 years. Every single day, I thought about you." I pulled my hand back impatiently, but she stubbornly clung to my arm, her voice low and hoarse. "For these 7 years, in every city, every country, I never gave up." Expressionless, I said, "And now that you've found me, so what?" Her voice paused, and when she spoke again, it carried a hint of urgency. "I found you because I wanted to explain," she said. "I know, the way I used to be. I really wronged you. It was my fault. So I raised a hand to cut her off. "So now you lock me up as compensation." She froze for a moment. When she lifted her eyes again, the corners were already red. She choked out, "Honey, believe me, I really know I was wrong. I love you." I paused when I heard her call me that. Then I laughed. "Willow, since you're being so sincere, why don't we talk about our child back then? Was it a boy or a girl?" At my words, her expression shattered instantly. Tears filled her eyes as she cried. "I'm sorry, back then I couldn't control my emotions at all. I know. I hurt our baby. I don't deserve to be a mother. Every time I think of our baby, my heart feels like it's being sliced apart. I know saying this now is too late, but honey, give me a chance, please give me a chance to make up for everything," she said. "Honey, I love you. I really can't live without you." Watching her cry in pain, I pinched the bridge of my nose. Whatever. There were only 3 days left before I would leave this world anyway. Chapter 7. In the following 2 days, Willow's care for me could only be described as meticulous to the point of trembling caution. She served me tea, poured water, washed my clothes, cooked every meal to perfectly suit my taste. She obeyed every word I said. If I told her to massage me, she massaged me. If I told her to wash my feet, she washed them. And even when I ordered her to put on all kinds of revealing outfits, something she had always been conservative about, just to humiliate her, she still bought them and wore them for me, no matter how shameful they were. In short, during this period, if I told her to go east, she would never go west. Only the iron chain on my wrist, she refused to unlock it, no matter what. She said, "Just wait a bit longer." Every time I brought it up, she avoided my gaze and replied pitifully, "Let me make sure you won't leave." Every night, she would slip uneasily into my arms, bury her face against my chest, and whisper again and again, "Honey, honey." I never responded, like a soulless puppet, until the final night. When she called me again, I stayed silent for a moment, then said softly, "Go to sleep." I felt her body tremble. Then she clung to me even tighter. Warm droplets spread across my neck as her tears soaked through my collar. The next afternoon, her phone rang. "Makoto." I leaned against the headboard, watching her voice tremble as she answered. A man's voice came faintly through the speaker. He said he was getting married and invited her to the wedding. After hanging up, she remained silent for a long time. Her phone screen stayed lit, showing she had already booked a round-trip ticket. Departure was noon today. The return flight was 2 hours later. She said, "Honey." She hesitated as she walked to the bedside, eyes lowered. "Makoto, I'm just going to attend their wedding. I'll be back very soon." I shrugged. "Go," I said calmly. "I won't leave. I'll wait for you to come back." She clearly didn't expect me to agree so easily. She froze, then hurried to explain. "I'm only gone for 2 hours, just the ceremony. Look, I already booked the return flight. I'll come back tonight." Seeing the lost, hesitant look in her eyes, I only found it amusing. So some instincts simply can't be changed, no matter how many lifetimes repeat. She spent a long time choosing clothes, and finally settled on a white fishtail dress. The moment the door closed behind her, the system's prompt chimed right on time. "Host, the exit channel has opened. You have 3 more hours to say goodbye to this world." I replied indifferently, "No need to wait that long. Send me off now." The system asked, "Are you sure?" "There are still 3 hours, I answered. "I'm sure. I don't want to stay even 1 more second." As the plane carrying her rose into the clouds, my world began dissolving into scattered starlight. In the very last moment, I saw the note she had left on the bedside table. "Honey, when I come back, let's start over." The handwriting was neat, filled with tentative hope. Unfortunately, there would be no starting over. This time, I was the one who left first. Chapter 8. I asked the system to let me choose how to exit this world, and I deliberately chose the most brutal option. After blocking all pain, I watched my own skin split open inch by inch. Blood seeped out from countless fine cracks, staining the bedsheets beneath me a deep red. I had my selfish reasons. After watching Willow die in front of me so many times, I needed to take revenge. At the wedding venue, Willow sat among the guests, feeling increasingly uneasy. Her heart was pounding. She sent me over a dozen messages, but they all vanished without reply. Every call went unanswered. Eventually turning straight into a powered-off tone, she said, "I'm sorry. I think I need to leave first." She lifted her skirt and ran out of the wedding hall, leaving Makoto staring in surprise. On the plane, she gripped her phone so tightly that her knuckles turned white. A peculiar, suffocating fear seized her chest, just like the premonition she had before ending her life in every previous lifetime. When she pushed open the front door, the overwhelming smell of blood hit her instantly. Her fingertips began trembling uncontrollably. She could barely hold the doorknob. The bedroom door was ajar, and the darkened trail of dried blood had seeped through the gap. She gathered her courage and pushed the door open, and the scene before her stopped her heart. I was lying quietly on the bed. Everything within sight dyed a horrific shade of crimson. Blood soaked the mattress completely, even dripping down onto the floor and congealing into dark patches. She choked out, "George," stumbling to the bedside. Her trembling fingers reached toward my nose and mouth. A moment later, she collapsed to her knees with a soul-shattering scream. Clutching my already cold body, she held me as if clinging to the last piece of driftwood in a storm. She said, "No. George, please." Her tears fell in heavy drops onto my face, mixing with the blood as she sobbed. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. How familiar this scene was. Once upon a time, I had also knelt on a rooftop, begging her not to jump. Back then, I had also screamed until my voice broke. And what did she do? She gave me a sad smile, and jumped without hesitation. Willow whispered through her tremors. You begged me like this back then too." Choking, she lifted my cold hand and pressed it against her cheek. But I actually treated you like that." Her cries grew softer and softer, crumbling into hopeless muttering. "So this is what it feels like, watching the one you love die in front of you." But by then, I could no longer see or hear anything. In the final moment before my consciousness fully left this world, all I saw was her kneeling in the pool of blood, her figure blurred like a fading ink stain. The system's gentle chime sounded. Task world exit complete. Host, welcome back. Chapter 9. After returning to my own world, I immediately took on a new mission without stopping. This time, I carefully chose an entrepreneurship storyline, starting with nothing but a bowl, climbing step by step until becoming a giant of the industry. Those garbage redemption storylines, I was never touching them again. In the new world, I threw myself into expanding markets and developing products. Every day was incredibly fulfilling. A power fantasy business script was far more interesting than all that love obsession nonsense. That day, while I was reviewing the quarterly report, the system suddenly popped out to gossip. "Host, you know what? Something huge happened on Willow's side." I didn't even lift my head, flipping through the documents with impatience. "What? Did she kill herself again?" it said. Even more extreme, the electronic voice carried excited gossiping energy. It said, "She cremated your corpse from that world, put the ashes in a custom glass urn, and sleeps hugging it every day. She doesn't go anywhere, just stays in that bedroom where you two last saw each other." I raised an eyebrow, still flipping through the report. It continued. "And the scarier thing," the system lowered its voice, "she somehow gathered every trace of you from every world, photos, videos, even things you used, all stored in a hidden chamber." Makoto went to see her and she threw him out, saying, "Don't disturb me and my husband." I chuckled, took a sip of coffee. As expected, she's a Yandere to her core. The system continued. "The craziest part is, she heard somewhere that you might be in another world, so she started desperately looking for a way to travel through dimensions. Rumor says she sacrificed half her lifespan just to." Its voice suddenly cut off, replaced by a sharp burst of static. Sensing something, I lifted my head. Through the office's floor-to-ceiling windows, I saw a familiar figure standing downstairs. Willow. She had lost a lot of weight, like all life had drained out of her. Her complexion was frighteningly pale, but her eyes, those eyes were blindingly bright, fixed directly on me. The system stammered. She actually found you." I met her gaze calmly. I even gave her a smile, which slowly shifted into a cold smirk. Then I withdrew my gaze and pressed the internal line button. "Anna, get ready. We're moving up the acquisition of that tech company." The system panicked. "Host, what do we do? She's right downstairs." I laughed. "What's the rush?" I calmly signed the last document. System, calculate my mission points for this world. The system said. Mission completion 98%. Rating S level, but host. I cut it off. Send me to the next world. I stood up, glanced one last time at the slender figure downstairs, and sneered. I don't believe she has that many lives left to sacrifice. As the teleportation's white light engulfed me, I saw Willow suddenly break into a frantic sprint toward the building entrance. Unfortunately, she was still one step too late, this time as well. She failed to catch me. I closed my eyes and thought, go on, chase me, no matter what you do. You will never catch up to me. Chapter 10. During breaks between missions, I went back to visit Sophia twice. The first time was for her wedding. I quietly sat in the last row, watching this once rowdy, lively little troublemaker wear a pure white wedding dress, her face shy and glowing. When the ceremony ended, she spotted me. Her eyes lit up instantly, and she dragged her groom over in excitement. She said, "George, this is my deskmate I always talk about." She beamed as she introduced him to me, then turned to me and said, "This is my husband, David." The groom reached out his hand with a laugh. "Sophia always talks about you, says you used to copy her homework all the time." Looking at the happiness on Sophia's face, I suddenly remembered that rainy day in our senior year, how she screamed while shielding me from flying gravel. Now she had found the happiness that belonged to her. That was good, really good. The second time I went back was for her baby's 1-month celebration. The chubby little thing lay in the crib blowing bubbles. Sophia complained about how hard the baby was to take care of, but the smile in her eyes betrayed her joy. She asked, "How are you doing now?" While patting the baby's back, she added, "Still living abroad all by yourself?" I nodded. Across 5 lifetimes in that world, the first 4 were spent circling around Willow alone. Only in the 5th did I, by chance, end up befriending Sophia, and that friendship became the warmest thing I gained during that long mission. Before heading to a new world again, I went to say goodbye to her. I brought her baby a longevity charm. The little one grabbed the bell and giggled. Sophia tilted her head and said, "Going abroad again?" She fussed over me like an old mother. "Take care of yourself over there. Call us anytime if anything happens. And if you meet someone nice, hurry up and settle down." She nagged me in that gentle, motherly way, filling the void of growing up without parents. I listened with a smile, without interrupting. "George," before I left, she looked at me seriously and said, "No matter where you are, you have to be happy." She added, "If anything happens, call us. Our deskmate friendship lasts forever." I nodded and waved goodbye. As I turned and walked into the security checkpoint, I heard her call behind me, "Remember to come back often." Outside the airplane window stretched a vast, rolling sea of clouds. The system whispered, "Host, what kind of world do you want to go to this time?" I replied, "Anywhere." I closed my eyes, as long as Willow isn't there, because I knew, no matter which world I went to, there would always be someone, somewhere, who sincerely wished for my happiness, and that was enough.